How you guys doing today? It's Anthony Ganji. Welcome to another episode of Tier Talk. Hey guys, we covered this yesterday. It's a father named Micah Smith who decided that he's going to take his three children, a 2-year-old, a 4-year-old, and an 8-year-old, on a hiking trip. Unfortunately, the path he chose was only for experienced hikers, and sadly, it ended in pretty much the father and the three children almost dying. Thank God they were rescued. And as of now, I hear all parties are doing better. But with that said, the father is now being charged. I believe he's in the county jail now. And some of his charges are child torture. Now, if you guys are not familiar with this case, I would recommend that you watch the other video I just did on this, because today I wanted to showcase some of the alternate trails he could have chosen, because that's been asked for in the comments. And also, what would be the prosecution's push? What would be the defense's push? So I think it would be just for an interesting discussion, because there were other trails he could have chose that were more kid friendly. So again, guys, if you guys get a chance, I would definitely recommend you watch the other video first. But just for a quick summary, because I will give you a quick summary of the incident. On October 11, 2025, 31-year-old Micah Zephan Smith left his home in South Jordan, Utah, with his three young children, ages 8, 4, and 2, for what he later described as a spontaneous adventure. To many who knew him, Micah was the outdoorsy, adventurous parent. His brother described him on a GoFundMe page as a good dad who loves his kids and loves taking them on adventures. And that GoFundMe would initially raise over $60,000 before the truth unraveled, and the page was quietly deleted the day charges were announced. And you can actually see that in the comments, how kind of mentioned this in yesterday's show, but how he was kind of being praised as a hero for what he did to save his children, especially at one point when he covered the children during the cold. But then people just started bringing up concerns, and that's a dangerous hike. What are we doing here? And then the narrative started to shift. And then eventually, when he was charged, the GoFundMe page, I believe, was taken down. Now, the destination Micah chose was Big Cottonwood Canyon. But instead of taking his kids on any one of the many family-friendly trails nearby, he drove them straight to the base of Broad's Fork Trail, one of the steepest, hardest, most physically punishing routes in the Wasatch Mountains. Broad's Fork climbs more than 5,000 vertical feet towards the Twin Peak Ridge, topping out about 11,300 feet. Consistently rated as a hard, strenuous hike intended for experienced adult hikers. Search and rescue teams later confirmed that during the rescue, only 2 deputies felt physically capable of reaching the location where the children were found. So this is experienced individuals who also believe that this is definitely not a hike for young children, a 2-year-old, a 4-year-old, and an 8-year-old. Micah admitted he had never hiked Broad Forks before. He didn't research the trail. He didn't check the weather. And his daughter later told investigators that he told them they were going on a 9-mile or 9-hour hike. She wasn't sure which, but either way, far beyond the capability of a toddler and a preschooler. So again, you got ignorant. So now the question is, can we prove that you did know, or that it's in your duty as a parent to know? And look at all these alternatives that would have better fit the need of your children. From the very start of the climb, the warning signs were obvious. The children had to scramble through shifting rocks and thorny brush. The trail became steep and unstable, forcing them to grab bushes just to stay upright. 2 miles from the top, the terrain required climbing rock slabs with hands and feet. And as clouds rolled in and temperature dropped, his 8-year-old daughter repeatedly asked him to turn around. Micah refused, telling her it was once-in-a-lifetime thing. When she said she was scared, he answered, "You shall not pass," quoting a movie line in a moment where a parent should have been gauging danger. Movie lines from Lord of the Rings. It's what Gandalf says at the very end, trying to stop I forgot the name of the creature, but trying to cross a bridge. And guys, a lot of this was videoed. So I believe what was in the video has been documented and is being utilized for the charges. At home, Micah's wife, Samantha, was monitoring weather changes and texting him to turn back. At 5:18 p.m., Micah admitted the 4-year-old was exhausted, that everyone is starting to fail, and it's starting to rain. He added, "It's tough with 3 children and no second parent." So I think what he's doing now is kind of pushing guilt towards the wife, as I mentioned now. Like, this guy is motivated. He wants to get to the top. Damn the kids. They're now just a burden. And technically, she should have been here helping me, not helping the family, help me, I feel, get to the top. My opinion. So the wife responds back, "You better leave. It's going to get dark." Yet Micah continued ascending, ultimately reaching the summit at around 6. And just as fog, rain, hail, and freezing winds descended around them, the family began to climb down, but the conditions had deteriorated so severely that they only managed about 600 feet before Micah decided to seek shelter for the night. During the descent, the 2-year-old fell and hit his head, leaving him dazed. Micah located a large boulder with a shallow overhang and attempted to build a crude windscreen from sticks and rocks. Believing it would keep them warmer, he removed the children's wet clothing. In freezing temperatures with high winds and minimal coverage, this left them dangerously exposed. Throughout the night, the children's conditions deteriorated. The 2-year-old stopped breathing at least once, according to Micah's account, and had to be revived. The 4-year-old struggled to breathe and slipped in and out of consciousness. Micah taught his 8-year-old daughter to perform CPR in the darkness, and she later described hugging her younger brother to warm him, breathing air into his lungs and pushing on his chest as her father instructed. By sunrise, all 3 children were unconscious beneath the boulder. Micah left them and started walking down the mountain alone to find help, or so he says. Meanwhile, when the family never returned home, the Salt Lake County Sheriff's Search and Rescue Team, along with the Life Flight and the Utah DPS Aero Bureau, had launched a full operation overnight. Shortly after dawn, rescuers encountered Micah walking alone down the trail. When they reached the boulder shelter, they found what would later be described in medical terms as a devastating scene. And again, all 3 children were, I have it all here, hold on. So let's see. So rescuers found the children unconscious, minimally clothed, cold to the touch, exposed, and as described by responders, appearing lifeless. The 4-year-old had no pulse and a core temperature around 62 degrees Fahrenheit. He required CPR for 25 minutes. ECMO also mentioned there was skull removal and treatment for a stroke. That was for the 4-year-old. The 2-year-old stabilized after treatment. The 8-year-old was treated for exposure, and Smith had frostbite on his feet, from what I have here. Now, real quick, before we go into how these different hiking trails looked, I want to mention an incident that's kind of providing context a little bit to what we've been discussing. A month prior, a lot of people believe there was warning signs. It's been reported that investigators discovered serious concerns leading up to the hike. 1 month before the incident, Smith told a Cottonwood Heights officer he had suicidal ideation and was going to hike up the mountain. Police found 2 firearms and an axe in his car. And then there was 1 month after the incident where Smith was trespassed from Primary Children's Hospital for interfering with his son's medical care and tampering with equipment. I don't have a lot of information on that. Unfortunately, that's all I have. And then days later, he was arrested for domestic violence. And I did find sources that it was against the wife, from what I read. And these events paint contrasting interpretations depending on which legal side is speaking. So again, I mean, this could have been just a bad decision by the father. Could have been. Didn't do any research. Didn't do anything. Didn't know too much about the trail. So you have ignorance, and I think that's going to be played out if they decide to take this over to trial. That's something that will be definitely played out. But I think from what I'm being told, it's obvious that there are other trails for kids that are more family friendly. It's all across the route. They kind of tell you that even this trail, the one that he chose to take, is a bit more dangerous, more for experienced hikers. And then a lot of families also say, you know, when you're doing a trip like this, do your own research. You know, find out, you know, what you're actually doing, what the type of weather is. So there is a lot of onus on the father for basically, hey, did you check what you were doing? So even if there wasn't nothing there, you're still responsible for a parent to know what you're bringing your children into. So it's a very tough argument for him either way. But I would like to do now is show you some of the alternatives, because Big Cottonwood Canyon has multiple family-friendly trails that are widely recommended for children. So I wanted to show you a few. I saw Willow Heights Trail. I saw Lake Mary Trail. It's also known as Brighton. I saw Donut Falls Trail, and I saw Millby North Fork Trail. And then I'll show you a video from TikTok of what he chose, and then we'll look at the comparisons. Big difference. Hey, guys, by the way, guess who joined us? I got Russ Hamilton. He's pretty familiar with hiking. So, Russ, I just wanted to kind of show them some simpler trails that Micah could have chosen that's along the path. Like that basically he chose one of the hardest ones that are actually not for the inexperienced, definitely not for a 2-year-old, a 4-year-old, and an 8-year-old. But along the way, there were other trails he could have chose, and I have them listed here. I got a few videos I found on TikTok. So you have Willow Heights Trail, Lake Mary Trail, the Donut Trail, and the Mill Beef Trail, and I wanted to compare them. So now, Russ, you're familiar with the case, right? You have a father who took 3 of his kids, a 2-year-old, a 4-year-old, an 8-year-old, on one of the most complicated trails there at Cottonwood in Utah, and then search and rescue. And now we got kids had to be rescued. The father had to be rescued. There were pushes from the family to get him to turn around. He didn't. I mean, he was really focused on finishing that mountain, getting to the top. I think got to a point where the kids became a burden. Then a month prior to this trip, he had suicide ideation that he admitted to, said times were getting tough. So a lot of people in the audience believe that in context, he wasn't planning on coming back, that maybe he knew exactly what he was doing. But now he's been charged for like child torture, he's got 6 charges coming his way. So what I wanted to showcase was arguments that will be pushed by the prosecutor, and then arguments that will be pushed by the defense. And one of the arguments obviously is ignorance. I didn't know. So a lot of people are pushing in the comments that there's easier trails, which you should be aware of. It's pretty much all it's before you even go to take a hike, right before you enter the patch, you're going to notice the signs that are there to tell you if this is an experience, if you need to have experience, if not, how simple it is, what they recommend. But even if you say you didn't see that, it's still your job as a parent to look up, do research, and make sure there'll be no concerns when you plan this trip. So the first 4 videos I have they're of the simpler ones. So again, he chose Broad Fork. So now let's start with this one, Russ. This is one of the family-friendly ones. It's called Willow Heights Trail. It's a 2-mile round trip, gentle incline, popular with families, frequent hikers, high visibility, and lower risk of sudden weather shifts. So I got one good video here that I want to show you. This is it right here. I'm not going to do any sound because I don't want to get copyright claims. It's absolutely beautiful, Russ. I mean, something I wouldn't mind taking my family on. Would you agree?
Yeah, this is, it's fairly level. I didn't see specifically what the elevation changes might be. Elevation changes are, really kind of a showstopper for families most of the time. My wife and I, it's been a few years now, but we've gone down a few times to like Yosemite, and we have one particular trail down there that like changes 2,400 feet of elevation in 3.2 miles as you get to the top of the falls. And it's very challenging. And sometimes we would see, people trying to get little kids up there, but it's just really not possible.
Well, yeah, I have it here. For Willow Lake, you tell me that it's easy, moderate. Length is 2.4 miles. Elevation gain is 700 feet. And why it's kid-friendly, it's gentle switchbacks, shaded forest, lake at the top, manageable for ages 5+. Typical notes from hikers, it's perfect for families. My 4-year-old handled it great, short but rewarding. So again, the prosecution angle would be this is exactly the kind of kid challenge that's still safe and highly recommended. A normal parent would select this if they wanted a venture without danger. So would you agree a 700 feet elevation gain throughout a 2.4 mile hike?
Yeah, that's starting to get a little bit toward moderate. It depends on if you're talking about if it's there or back. I certainly wouldn't put a 5-year-old on it. If it's 2.4 miles total, there and back, or if it makes kind of a circuit, that would be fine. That's the age you want to start, getting them into that. One thing that's really difficult on trails is if it's dark and you don't have a lighting source, you're almost in trouble no matter what.
And I think, Russ, I think they're round trip totals.
Okay.
So does that work?
Yeah, I would say that 2.4 miles isn't that bad. I would like if I was going to start a little tiny kid on there, it would have to be, an experiment to see how it was going to go. But I think that from what we've seen, we can just say that the trail he chose, coupled with the elevation change, coupled with the lack of lighting and things like that, was extreme.
Yeah, I'm going to show that in comparison, by the way. Okay, I got Lake Mary here. Yeah, because I took note of the comparison. That means that he had all these options, and then he chooses the worst one that even more experienced have trouble doing. So I want to show you Lake Mary. This is Lake Mary. Remember, I muted the sound. I got some details on Lake Mary, Russ. So it's moderate. It's 3.5 miles round trip. Elevation gain is 850 feet. Why it's kid friendly. Lots of families do this hike with children ages 5+. Trail is safe, scenic, and well maintained. So even for this trail, it's considered the upper limit for kids. It's nowhere near the danger levels of Broad's Fork. I just want to see if there's another.
Okay.
I mean, I want to show. Maybe this one's a good one. Look, Russ, it is beautiful, right? Would you not want to take your family here?
Yeah, we have. We're in luck here in California. We have places that are exactly like this, and most of them are gentle. We go to a place up here called Cleo's Baths. That's quite a challenging hike. But this one, the trail looks flat, well maintained. And with lots of other hikers, not much of a chance that you get into a really bad position.
Yeah, and for this one, you don't see this one as bad, right?
No. The only thing I would call into question there is looks like they're starting to get some elevation with regards to that.
Oh, because it's 800, but it's also spread out through it's a little longer. It's 3.5 miles.
Yeah, but I mean the general elevation. It doesn't say what the general elevation is. That starts to become a little bit of an issue.
Because the air's thinner?
Yeah, like we have one that my wife and I go on where the base begins at around 5,500 feet. And so that'll wind you just even walking on fairly level surfaces.
Yeah, I can actually, that's a drone shot.
It's very beautiful.
Yeah, it is. I would actually like to. I'm going to ask that the general elevation, but as I said, these are noted as being kid friendly. But it's still good to look. So because you get to know the differences. So this one is Lake Mary. So Willow Lake, we said, had a general elevation gain of 650 to 750 feet. The general elevation range is 7,200 feet to 7,900 feet. It's steady but not steep, and it's shaded forest. Kids 4+ can manage. So that's 7,200 feet to 7,900 feet.
Yeah, that's starting to get into the challenging range, really.
It's considered moderate, but right. And then the one that was the one we did that's Willow Lake. This one here, Lake Mary, its general elevation is 800 to 900 feet. The general elevation range is 8,700 feet to 9,500 feet. Grade is moderate incline, well maintained. It's more of a challenge, but still family appropriate for ages 7+. So again, these are options you could have taken better than the option he took. Wait till I give you those, Russ.
Yeah.
Wait till you see the difference here. But right now, you could still see families taking their children on this, right?
Yes.
All right, because it's gonna get a little bit more unique.
Maybe children more in the 8, 9, 10-year-old range.
Yeah, I think the 2-year-old definitely. Definitely shouldn't have been on this one. And then I got there's 4 of these. I got Donut Falls trails. I saw 4. So I got Donut Falls trails, and I'll give you a little breakdown of what I see here. And that's in Utah again, obviously. I like this one. This is the one I saw before that I like this one. So look at this one, Russ. Let me read a little bit about this one. General elevation gain is 500 to 600 feet. General trail elevation starts around 6,900 feet, climbs to around 7,400 feet. Grade is gradual. The over characteristics of it is mild incline, family crowds, high visibility. And then just so you could see here, what they say about it is wide groomed trail, gentle climb, no exposure, busy tourist foot traffic, easy for search and rescue. This is the #1 family hike in Big Cottonwood, perfect for toddlers. Does that sound a little bit more simpler?
That sounds simpler. When you see this, it obviously has some water features. Water features and toddlers don't necessarily mix. You've got to know your limitations and things like that. But as long as the terrain is level and there's good access, I wouldn't have any problem with it. But when I see water features, it always comes into question because in this area here, we have lots of drownings and things like that every single year.
Well, right. And then Russ, for this one, it looks like it's 500 to 600. But then I want to give you the round trip. Did I say what the round trip was on this one?
I don't think you did.
The round trip here is 3 miles.
Easy.
And the highest point is 7,800 feet. I'm actually thinking about maybe spending a week out in Utah and just doing these, not the one that he went on, because wait till you see the difference in that one. So this is and I have one more that I wanted to show that I found, which was Mill B North Fork, and it's the lower section only. And I'll give you the details now. I think this one actually. This is one of the safest ones. An introduction for hikers is the other one. So I should have maybe gave it in more of a progressive order, but okay. Let me see if there's another one of this. I actually let me see this one. Look at that, Russ. It looks like it's straight, right?
Yep.
I like this one, man, a lot. I like
a little bit of a scramble there on the hill, but not
what's exactly is a scramble?
Like a scramble is just like a little area where you kind of like, have to, kind of, pick and choose and get back and forth on the trail a little bit, it's not, that one's not too bad. It's just, you want to challenge yourself and,
right.
Kids, it's good for them to challenge as long as it's safe. In this area here, like, where we have here, believe it or not, we have a lot of, inmate fire crews that actually maintain the trails and so forth.
Right. Russ, my biggest concern in context here was that a month prior, it looked like he said he wanted to kill himself. And then you wind up bringing your kids. And then he wind up having a domestic violence, I think, against his wife after the incident. And then also when his son was in the hospital, the 4-year-old, because the 4-year-old suffered the worst, I think, had a stroke. They had to remove a part of his skull, probably to drain fluid. He tried to mess with the equipment, but it doesn't clearly say what that equipment is. That's a bit confusing. Hopefully that opens up. They let you know a little bit more, because a lot of the stuff that's here, it's going to be, it's from the video, because I'm sure they took videos, and the videos I think were used for the charges, because you can hear the kids in the videos saying like, hey, kind of like they want to go back. The 8-year-old pretty much said that she didn't want to freeze to death. So now this is Mill B. That's the North Trail. This is different from the Lake Blanche route. Okay, so the elevation gain here is 250 to 300 feet. Highest point is 6,600, and the total distance round trip is 1.7 to 2 miles. The terrain features paved at the beginning, turns into an easy dirt trail, multiple safe bailout points, very low risk, great for toddlers, and this is considered one of the safest intro hikes in Big Cottonwood. And the elevate, as I said, 250 to 300 feet, 6,000 feet is where you start. Very gentle, paved at first, easy for families. So what's your thoughts on this? This seems to be an introduction course or trail.
Yeah, that's one of those things that, it's more like walking around a very large backyard than actually out in the wilderness. You see, see, look, even here they have a stairway for people, and so there's less chance of having to do this. And this kind of thing, it appears to me that it is a park your car and go with zero to very, very minimal preparation. And so but preparation when you're hiking is the big thing. You have to make sure that you have what you're going to need out there. A place like this, you don't really even need maybe even a first aid kit, because it can stay at your car. I would always recommend carrying one with you, but this is easy breezy, peasy, lemon squeezy, all of that.
Right, now wait till you see. I want to see if I have one more video of this one. Wait till you see the one he chose. Now, he had all these options. Now, mind you, he's with a 2-year-old boy, a 4-year-old boy, and an 8-year-old girl. And in my mind, the 8-year-old girl seems to be the hero. At one point on their descent, I guess he kind of figures like we're going to be trapped here. So he leaves those 3 alone so he could say he could find help. Now, the only thing is at one point they did have cell phone connection because the wife was texting him. But I'm assuming you lose a lot of cell phone connection when you do hikes like this, correct?
Yeah, it's very dependent on what's out there. Usually, there's very little that you can get in the way of a cell tower. One of the things is that sometimes they have radio ground networks that you can use for 911. It's not always evident. I have personal experience of that where I tried to dial 911, even though I could see I had nothing on my phone. And then suddenly, the dispatcher answers. So it's hard to say exactly what they would have in an area like that. But yeah, it's difficult, and it can be fraught with not being able to get that out. A lot of people will travel with, they have all these GMARS radios and stuff now, which have, pretty good feature to be able to get out there and talk to other people. But nothing is 100% out in the wilderness, people.
Right now, I'm like, this is just a little bit more Mill B North. I mean, this does look a little bit more manageable, something that I would like to do. Now, Russ, so far, I like the point you made. Where you start matters because of the elements, the air, the weather. So it really does matter where you start, what that base level is, correct?
Yeah. Sometimes it's an individual thing. Sometimes it's based on resources. What's the most probable problem that you could get yourself into and out of, and that has to be your base starting point.
Right, and I would assume if this is all part of one park, let's just say, you would have to, if you're driving, let's say you're trying to find a spot, you would have to pass up the lower ones before you get to the higher ones. Maybe, I don't know. I'm just maybe that's not correct. Because he had to. I would like to believe. So if I was a father, well, I am a father. Reasonably, if I decide to do a hiking trip, the first thing I'm going to look at is what I feel my kids are able to do, especially if it's introduction. I will look at simpler hiking. This is for them, not for me. So I would look at things that I feel that they can do, and I would take responsibility of that as their father. So I wouldn't be able to claim I didn't know it was this bad if the information is out there, because all that showcase was that I didn't even bother checking. I guess my kids' life is not so valued by me that I didn't even give a look for a moment of what the weather's going to be, what type of trail this is, all this stuff. I mean, I learned a little bit from you today. Obviously, the elevations, all that stuff matter, but even for me, maybe I can have something simplistic as easy, moderate, or difficult, which is shown. So people may not be able to read or understand the language you were talking about, but they also sum it up by saying this is easy, this is moderate, this is difficult, correct?
Yeah, it is partially about the trail, but then it's also partly about the trail conditions. Like if I were gonna pick like one thing that would be like real easy to get yourself into serious trouble about, it would be hypothermia. Because hypothermia literally means a lack of heat. You can die in relatively warm weather just if your surface temperature drops enough that your core temperature starts having to try and migrate out. And so I think that these are all things that he did not take into account. What we have to think about, though, is whether that is actually criminal or is it stupid, or is it reckless, and how that might come about within the trial with regards to a brand new law that Utah just passed
Child torture.
within the past year.
Now, Russ, this is a bit different now. Now, in comparison, this is the Broad Forks Trail. This is the route that he took. So elevation gain is 3,160 to 5,000 feet. That's depending on turnaround point. The highest point is 11,200 to 11,300 feet near Twin Peaks Circuit, because there's a west twin and an east twin. It's 6 to 8 miles round trip, depending on where you turn around. It's steep from the start, rocky loose footing, bushwhacking. Maybe you can explain that in a bit. Scrambling required. Explain that again if you don't mind. Exposed slopes. What does that mean? Rapid weather shifts and serious fatigue even for adults. This trail is considered hard for experienced hikers. Search and rescue said only 2 deputies felt capable that they could reach the kids. And this is what I have here. So again, general elevation gains is 3,160 feet to the basin, up to 5,000 feet near the ridge approaching Twin Peaks. So if you go a little further up, it starts at 6,200 feet, climbs to 11,300 feet. That's all the way to the top without that, if you go the full route. So again, steep, sustained, technical, scrambling required. The overall character is hard and advanced, not recommended for children. Weather shifts rapidly, dangerous exposure, and requires conditioning and experience. Broad Forks elevation gain is 5 to 10 times higher than family-friendly trails. So I got some videos here, Russ. What's your thoughts? There's a lot there.
Yeah. So first of all, I don't know. I guess that they were attempting to summit, and when I start thinking about 11,000 feet, I mean, when I was in peak condition, we went up to just 8,000 feet on a Tough Mudder, which was a 15K event. And let me tell you, I was in really good condition, and that one got me. My stepson, who was probably in better condition, ended up throwing up along the way. And so 11,000 feet, I would think that you would start to potentially, especially if you haven't trained for it and you haven't been, working, doing actual work at that type of elevation, you could get yourself into some serious problems with regards to all kinds of things like nausea, fatigue, headache, dizziness, and other things, because your body has not had a chance to adapt. That is the secondary potential killer in this thing to me. The number one in this for me, though, of course, is going to be the hypothermia, because hypothermia is something that a lot of people really don't understand.
And Russ, it starts rather easy, then the trail kind of disappears, and it really is a matter of climbing. But look, I mean, this looks definitely a little bit more difficult. I don't think that you would want to take a 2-year-old.
And what's the round trip on it?
Well, it depends on where you turn back around, but it's 6 to 8 miles. It depends, because there's a lesser point, but then most people try to go to the peaks, which is another 2 miles and change.
Okay, so if I was attempting to summit something like that and get out there, I'm going to want, on the minimum, with each person with me, double to triple the number of calories that I would normally eat in a day, because you're exerting a lot of effort. Your body is potentially losing a lot of heat. You're also going to have a lot of water. It mentions exposed sides with regards to, some of the mountaintop. And that just means that you're out there either in the sun, in the shade where it might be very cold, because, the mountain can block that sun. It can mean that you're exposed to the wind, other elements, rain, snow, that kind of thing. So the fact, I don't know, I didn't get to the part about, what provisions they had on them. Maybe the stuff I was looking at didn't have that, but you have to have water, and you have to have food. And so I know that it was, raining or snowing or sleeting, but that can be even more dangerous if you try and drink very cold water. You can just really push the hypothermia in your body right along.
Look at this, Russ.
Yeah.
I mean, is that something you expect the kid to be able to do?
Yeah. I would even in good condition, not immediately try and attempt something like this because of the elevation. I would want to work up to it over a couple of weeks and get myself acclimated. Without acclimatizing yourself to that, it's an absolute no-go in my opinion.
There's actually, I just saw there's one other trail, but it's kid friendly. I want to take a look at it. Silver Lake Trail in Utah. This is another one that's there. From what I see here, it's 0.9 miles, boardwalk, stroller friendly, high visibility. So this is just more of a kind of just a stroll, family friendly hike. It's a simple loop, and it's not even a mile. So that's
pretty simple, but even there, as you can see, in the wintertime and with water features, you could really get into hypothermia really easy. Not just in the wintertime though. People should be aware that in the midst of summer, in some of these cold water bodies, you can have hypothermia, especially if the sun isn't out and things like that, more readily than you could possibly imagine.
So it's good to at least know. I mean, that's the parent's responsibility, correct?
Should be, yes.
So Russ, so love to get your thoughts on this. Okay, so we can close this off. Hold on one second, get ourselves back here, because now I wanted to touch on possible arguments here because he's in the county jail. He's got 6 charges. Let me see. What are Micah's exact charges? Now, guys, remember, guys, I covered this in more detail in the other episode. We're going to kind of go a little bit deeper now, so I would recommend you watch the first one first. So he's got, as of November 26th, he's got 3 counts of child torture. So that's a first-degree felony. Mandatory minimum is 10 years to life in prison. These charges allege that Smith intentionally or knowingly inflicted severe physical or emotional pain, so they're going to want to challenge that, did so in a depraved manner, and caused prolonged suffering while acting with awareness of the danger. So they're going to have to prove that he knew. So I want to ask you questions on that. And this is Utah's newly enacted child torture statute. It was passed in early of 2025. And then you got aggravated child abuse. That's first-degree felony, punishable by 5 years to life in prison. These charges apply because the victims were under 18. The abuse resulted in serious bodily harm. The conduct involved extreme recklessness or intentional harm, and the behavior created a substantial risk of death. Serious bodily injuries include cardiac arrest, hypothermia, head trauma, stroke, surgical removal of part of the skull, and ECMO intervention, all of that one is pretty much what one of the 4-year-olds suffered through. So the legal note here, these charges do not run as misdemeanors or lesser felonies. All 6 are capital level felonies involving potential life sentences. If convicted on all counts, especially under the mandatory minimum torture statute, Smith could effectively face 30 years to life or potentially consecutive life sentences, depending on how the prosecution structures the case. So obviously you have one thing with his awareness, right? So I want to read something off to you and then we'll dive deep. How would Micah have known this trail was difficult? So information visible before stepping on the trails, right? So Russ, if he was to say that he wasn't aware of how difficult it was and the weather was unpredictable and all this other stuff, I mean, even if the hiking trail didn't put the stuff up, which they should, but let's say they didn't, because I can't guarantee that he saw these things, but let's say they did it and I wanted to push responsibility back on him. Wouldn't a reasonable parent believe that that's your responsibility, that you're not going to be able to get out by saying you were ignorant?
Well, that's going to be the really big question. I think that, there's something to be said. Mankind is largely kind of, ignorant of things, if you will. Whether he was specifically ignorant of these things is another question. The thing that I would want to know, and probably can be proven or maybe not, that we'll see is whether or not he has, any kind of extensive experience hiking in the area, whether he's been to that area before, whether or not, he might have done some Google searches if those searches contained information like maximum height, trail length, expected weather conditions, or if he did something, how fast can the weather change? That might be pretty damning. The part about this, the fact that he's charged with a brand new statute, and I've only had the chance to read parts of it, but the statute itself has a few problems in that, you really have to be able to improve intent. And the other thing is, if you look up a little bit about laws that are constitutionally vague. And so this one does have some things that are constitutionally vague because it relies a little bit on jargon rather than actually true, concrete definitions of what happened. And I'm not trying to excuse the guy. But what I'm saying is there's a lot of stuff along the way in lesser included offenses that can get you to the point where you can get a lot of probably felonious, what am I trying to say? Convictions. But I just think that, that this new law may have some problems. And I think that you're going to see that if he's convicted of it, that there will be that challenge. And whether that challenge, if they're able to, use constitutional vagueness to remove some of those charges, that's what we might be looking at. Brand new law. So it's very fertile for appeals. Let's just put it that way.
And also, I think that's why they're pushing the recklessness. They're not pushing intentional.
Yeah, that's a good idea for them to look at the reckless angles and
because I think if it was intentional, this would be an easy one for the defense to prove otherwise. Now,
much easier to prove.
Yeah. Now, for me, if I was a criminal lawyer, prosecutor, I'm saying prosecution, I would probably want to show what the park has that's visible, not to say that he saw it, but to let people know it's out there. The signs are there, because I'm assuming if I was to challenge this, I'm going to play ignorant. He could easily say he didn't see these signs, but I'm going to put it out there that you saw them. But let me just put it out there just to showcase where they are, just to kind of cover that. And you would see signs here that are visible that says it listed the trail as hard, elevation gains, and mileage displayed is clearly there. And there's also, if you do your own research, it's got users reviews, which says on this trail, it's steep and brutal, not for kids, one of the harder Wasatch hikes. Google shows difficulty ratings automatically for popular hikes. Utah travel sites do not list Broad Forks as family friendly, and the trailhead itself immediately begins with steep climbs. So I believe it's reasonable for one parent to expect from another parent. Again, a reasonable parent is expected to check trails difficulty, check weather, review trail length, consider children ages and abilities, choose safe terrain, and turn back when kids struggle. So, and by the way, that's all in the video too about the kids struggling. I'm sure that's being utilized for the charges, as I mentioned. But the funny thing is, Russ, if you want to say you didn't know, and then you want to be dumb enough to say that you didn't research it, to me, that's more recklessness.
Yes, and that's why recklessness is a lot easier to prepare for. It's a lot easier to prove. There were some spontaneous statements made by the girl, I believe, and she said that her father had told her that this was either a 9-mile trail or it was a 9-hour trail. Either one of which is completely unacceptable. For taking children of those ages along, and especially at the time that they did it and all of that, it was completely reckless. Now, whether it touches into that part that it's depraved or not is going to be one of the areas where this whole idea of vagueness comes in.
Hey, Russ, that's a good point, though. I mean, you got the 8-year-old saying that it was either 9 miles or 9 hours. I mean, now you got a 2-year-old and then again, he was pushing to get to that top of that mountain. So even when the mother had said, text him, hey, can you bring him back? He just starts saying stuff like, I got to do this with the 2-year-old. I got to carry them. And, basically you should be here in some extent. So it's like basically his focus really wasn't about the children. His focus was getting to the top of the mountain. I'll be honest with you. I think, in my opinion, so now I got some other arguments that the prosecution may claim. So Smith texted his wife, "Everyone is starting to fail." He admitted the 4-year-old was exhausted. He admitted he was struggling to carry the 2-year-old. His wife texts warnings, "You better leave. It's going to get dark." You got the kids on the video begging to turn back. So he ignored every warning. Young children. Okay, so prosecution may also claim the exhaustion was predictable, that you should have known that these kids would be exhausted by that level because young children cannot handle steep elevation gain. The trail is difficult even for adults. Weather was deteriorating. He was alone with 3 kids, and he continued upward after identifying danger signs. So he said that on the video or on the text. Children are exhausted, they're failing, and I could use some help here. Like when he talks about the other parent not being there. And then I got exhaustion was a major factor in their medical state. The kids were too tired to move or generate body heat. Fatigue accelerated hypothermia. The 4-year-old collapsed, losing pulse. The 2-year-old fell and hit his head due to fatigue and terrain. And their inability to descend was caused by overexertion. So the prosecution ultimately will claim this was a reckless decision, like we said. They will say this wasn't a mistake. This was a series of knowing choices that just really weren't thought through. And I think that's a safe argument for them, especially because you said it's kind of like a pioneer law. So I think the recklessness, it's truly there. You see it.
Yeah.
So you said you think that is a safe bet, right? Pushing for recklessness?
Well, yeah, the reckless thing, surely. I want to come back a second to the lighting situation. Apparently, he had made a statement that he was comfortable hiking at night without a light, and I don't know where that could possibly come from. I spent a good deal of my early teen and adult life, hunting at night, and let me tell you, though, I would have never thought of going anywhere without a light. It's really, really a tricky situation. And so, he has said a lot of stuff that just makes him look like, at the very least, makes him look like a fool. And so, that is just something that I don't think he's going to recover from. But again, I think that this new law being relatively untested, and it's going to be attacked on constitutional vagueness, but I think that's down the road. I think that it stands up fine until he gets a chance to get to appeals court, and so we'll see what happens with that. But all of this looks really bad. Just whether or not you get to, our standard is really high, and it should be, which is reasonable doubt. I think that there might be enough there that they can surmount that. They can get to the summit and over the top on that. But at the same time, I think it's going to be difficult. And even if they get past that, the constitutionality of the law is still going to be a question, regardless of reasonable doubt.
Yeah, remember, you could hear this in the video. Are we going to freeze to death, Daddy? That's going to hit on some emotional strings for the jury if this does go to trial. So me and Russ kind of work with the criminal mind all the time. So we know one of the things that they try to do is minimize or shift blame, especially when the evidence is so detailed against them. So, assuming that would be the route, what areas could they minimize? What areas could they shift blame to? So I would assume that if the defense was to make a claim, they would say something like he overestimated his ability, not intentionally harmed them. So like Russ said, I don't need a light. No, you do. So one of the pushes would be that he overestimated his ability. So he thought he could carry the kids as needed. He believed his outdoor experiences was enough. He assumed the trail was manageable, and many hikers do underestimate difficulty. They also could claim that the weather turned unexpectedly. Mountain storms can develop fast. Even experienced hikers get caught. And he did try to shelter the kids at one point when conditions worsened. The defense could also claim he fought to keep them alive. He taught the daughter CPR. He used his body as a windbreak. He removed wet clothes based on survival knowledge, and he built a shelter under a boulder. Then he himself was exhausted, panicked, and alone. So carrying a toddler uphill is brutal, which he shouldn't have been doing anyway. So I would argue that immediately. He had no backup parent, irrelevant. the parents telling you to come back, but that could be something they push. You never know. If he would have had two parents, maybe this wouldn't have happened. No, they shouldn't have done the strip to begin with. And he may have made poor decisions under stress, because they were talking about maybe his mental health state about a month prior to this trip. Hold on. I got a few more arguments here. I just lost it. Hold on. Right here. They could talk about cell service. Cell reception in Big Cottonwood is notoriously spotty. Some areas have no coverage at all. He may have been able to call for help earlier. And again, so I mean, Russ, this is really just minimizing and blaming. I mean, imagine going there and saying, as a defense attorney, if the other parent would have been there, this would have never happened. Or don't forget, he was tired too. He had to carry the 2-year-old also up the mountain, so he was tired as well. What have to here? He didn't have to do any of that. He was told to go back from the mother, the one that was thinking. And I will guarantee you this, Russ, in my opinion, I don't think she wanted this trip to happen, in my opinion. And I think that could have played out later on, maybe with that domestic violence thing. But I think the mother was the smarter of the two. But unfortunately, that would be a good question. Did the mother know that they were doing this specific hike? Or did the mother know that they were maybe going to this area but doing another hike? That would be interesting to see what the mother knew, because usually, maybe the mother would have maybe done some research and say, hey, are you sure we're going to do this with the kids? I'd rather have you not do that. I'm curious to see what the mother knew before they went out on this hike, or if the mother knew at all that this was the hike that they were doing. I'm assuming she may have known, because she did tell them at a certain point to turn back, but I don't know how much she would have known specifically of what they were actually hiking.
Well, I think her expectation would rightfully have been, he's going to take them somewhere that they can manage this. The thing that's going to be interesting is what his defense is going to do now. I think that they're going to try and hang some version or label on them of some sort of, diminished capacity. You have the prior suicide ideation. You have, potentially that this was, some type of suicide mission for himself, maybe for the kids as well. Utah has allowed a few different, diminished capacity type of defenses. It doesn't negate the guilt. But it can negate the intention of the crime. And we already talked about, the new law that's going to get tested here. And so what is that going to come down to, I think is the real question. This guy obviously should never have been left alone with his children because of that diminished capacity. Now, whether or not someone really saw it as being that serious or not is open to question. But this just has so many components to it that I think it's going to be overwhelming. I think that you're going to see perhaps they're going to push for some type of plea deal in this, but maybe not. Maybe Utah wants to make an example. Maybe they want to really use this new law. Maybe they want this law tested so that they can use it in the future. These are all ways, of course, that prosecutors and district attorneys and attorney generals for the state and stuff are going to look at it. But it's going to be interesting from that point. Don't want to lose track of the human component here. These were 3 little kids who all of them nearly lost their lives. Some of them had severe injuries. And so, one of them, is going to have difficulty recovering from what I've read. So anyway,
and you made a good point, because about a month ago, he did mention suicide ideations, had axed firearms, and then you're wondering what happened after that. I mean, was that relayed to the wife? Was the wife then taking responsibility of him saying, we'll try to work it through, but then later on leaving him with the children? I mean, that could be a concern, because just a month ago, he wanted to kill himself. I mean, what was the next step? What did we do after that? We just release him back to his house, or was he seen for any mental health evaluations, or did the did the wife, basically say, hey, he's under my care, and they were okay with that? I mean, but again, a guy a month ago wanting to kill himself, and then now being alone on a hiking trip with the three youngest, or with their three kids. So I got the prosecution narrative would be he ignored warning signs, ignored the children's fear, pushed them up a dangerous mountain, and left them in freezing conditions. It's not an accident, it's torture level recklessness. And then the defense narrative be he was a father who misjudged the trail and panicked. He tried to save the kids. This was a tragic mistake, not torture. I mean, so they are going to lean into him trying to save the kids. And then, Russ, you mentioned something I wanted to just go over before we finish. It is a new law. So why is this relevant here? So it's a torture statute. So the law's name is Child Torture Statute, passed in early of 2025. The purpose is to make severe child abuse involving prolonged suffering, extreme cruelty, or deprivation a standalone first-degree felony rather than a lesser-degree abuse charge. So I wonder if they're just trying out this law on this, because I don't know if I mean, I guess there's different levels here, because when I look at this, he was reckless, but I don't think he wanted this as an outcome. I think he was just reckless. I don't know if this law is more for people who have the intent of torturing their child, because that's a whole different element of evil. So I don't know if that's something that should be grouped together.
So if I can get here, that to me is the real potential problem here. Is this isn't what you would call conventional torture. It's not like things that we unfortunately see in the field that we work in, with regards to things that bad parents obviously do. Beating the kids.
Like the Jacqueline Mimi Torres Garcia case, the House of Horrors in Wisconsin.
Cigarettes on them, and doing, really bad and depraved things, beating them with belts, leaving marks on them, giving them purposeful access.
Right. But so then I
drugs
guess
and alcohol, that kind of
thing. The question here, Russ, does it become intentional when he should be turning back and he keeps going forward?
Yeah, but I think that true. But I think that's where we get to, what is his capacity for judgment at this point? Why does he believe that he's capable of this and the kids are capable of it? And so that does go to diminished capacity. And I'm not saying that that's right or
no.
Wrong,
I agree with you, Wes, because when you look at these cases, when there's an intentionality, the intentionality is based on what the outcome is going to be. So, like, if I'm starving, in this case, let's say Jacqueline Mimi Torres Garcia, I know the outcome is she's going to die. I mean, reasonably, I know she's going to die. This guy pushing forward to get to the mountain, it's reckless. He shouldn't have been doing that. But intentionally, did he know that this would lead to what happened to the children? Yeah. That's what you're pushing right there, right, Russ? That's what you're trying to get at.
Yeah. And this is going to be a question for a jury. And so, that's going to be very difficult. And, where that's going to end up somewhere, I hope that some justice is eked out. But this is a very difficult case. It's easy from the perspective of what he did was wrong. What happened to the children was horrible. But when we start defining the law and, trying to come to a consensus about, how much culpability is there on the table for him to have, that's a difficult question. What does he deserve? And so,
and to get all 12 people to agree that, ultimately I would think that they're going to try to push that he knew what he was doing, including the outcome, but to get all 12 people to agree to that, because I can even see us kind of trying to be fair and objective, looking at both sides. And if it does stand, you're looking at 10 years to life in prison, reflecting the legislator's intent that torture level abuse be treated with maximum seriousness. So the definition of torture under the law includes intentional or knowing infliction of severe physical or mental pain or suffering. So they're looking at the text. They're going to listen to what the daughter said, that we're going to freeze to death. I mean, these are things that he's being told, but does he really believe that this is going to be the outcome. That's what you're going to have to prove, that he knew there was a chance that they would freeze to death, and he decided to do this anyway. And then you got the.
I think, yeah, but I think that what I think that what you'll see from the defense, though, Anthony, is they're going to say, at the beginning, his intentions were, I'm not going to say fine. I'm going to say at the beginning, his intentions were, he thought
family adventure.
They had this, and then he got into a situation beyond which he had no more control over what the situation was. And so that is going to be problematic with regards to what the jury thinks.
But that's a good point, Russ. So if they could prove on video that he was pushing forward through the elements as opposed to going back, because it looks like he completes and turns back. So that's a good point, right? You're pushing through the elements, right? Would that make sense?
Yeah. And so, but we have to see that it's not clear where all of these things happen. There could be a point at which he acknowledges, yes, we're in a lot of trouble, or not. And so I think that if you say, oh, we're going to go ahead and summit. I don't think they didn't summit, did they? Because it's not clear. I don't see how you get to 11,000 feet. I don't.
Well, no, remember, I don't think they went all the way up, because there's another another 2 mile. Let me see. They summited. This is confirmed directly in the charging document. So yes, they reached the summit area, Broad's Fork, near the Upper Basin Ridge Zone at around 6 p.m. Yeah, that's right. And then they turned back just as the weather turned into mist, fog, rain, and hail. So Russ, that's a good point. He gets to the summit. That's where the weather starts to go bad. Then he does decide at that point, they turn back around. So verified details are that charging documents state the family reached the top portion of the trail around 6 p.m. From there, they attempted to descend. They made it almost 600 feet down before this happened. So, I mean, again, just being objective here, he does turn around when the weather starts to get bad. So I guess the concern would be this could have been prevented. You should have known better. And then, okay, fine. But then when he gets there, it looks like he does make the decision to turn around because they start to descend at that point. That actually, I'm not forgiving what he did, don't get me wrong, but that could give an argument for the defense, right?
Yes, potentially. I still, though, man, when I look at, I just can't even believe it to make it up there. I mean, I've done a lot of hiking at altitudes, and that altitude is not any fun at all.
I want to because it is a pioneer law. I hope they're not just testing this just to test it, because I don't know if this law would stand this type of what could be this type of defense. It depends, because remember, you got to convince all 12 jurors. The only thing here is you would have to convince that he intentionally went up there at some level. First, you're going to try to go that he knew what he was doing. Now, if you're saying he knew what he was doing and that he had all these signs and he ignored it, then you're also saying that he intentionally put his children at risk. He intentionally wanted his children to be tortured. That word right there may be hard for people to see or to grasp in this context. I think. So, Russ, then you got the deprivation of basic needs, which is shelter, warmth, protection under circumstances that a reasonable caretaker should anticipate as life-threatening. So, again, you got this law. So, in relationship to this law, elevates severe child abuse to the same level as violent felonies, means prosecutors can pursue much harsher penalties if circumstances meet the standard. So, again, you have environmental concerns versus maybe someone doing it on their own, because this was really the environment, but him putting them in that environment. And then how the law applies to this case. So prosecutors allege Smith knowingly exposed his children to extreme cold, exhaustion, and dangerous terrain on a trail unsuited for kids, satisfying exposure to dangerous conditions. We got that. Now, the overnight shelter under a boulder, removal of wet clothing, and failure to protect basic survival needs, warmth, clothing, medical aid matched the deprivation of basic needs element. The children endured prolonged suffering, hypothermia, unconsciousness, cardiac arrest, brain injury, leading to emergency surgery, ECMO, and long-term medical consequences. The combination of negligent decision plus prolonged danger plus severe harm fits the statute's definition of torture, not just neglect or aggravated abuse. Under the new law, each count of child torture carries mandatory minimum of 10 years, meaning if convicted on multiple counts, Smith could face decades or life in prison. And the law enables prosecutors to treat this case with severity that matches the gravity of the harm inflicted rather than risking a lighter sentence under traditional abuse law. So it's going to be interesting because it's going to be tried out in a manner where some people may view it as, you know, if you compare him to, like, let's say in my mind, Carla Garcia, Jacqueline Garcia, and Janita, Jonathan Anita, you know, these are the ones that starved their child, Jacqueline, and let her die. You know, this wasn't negligence. This was outright abuse and torture. You know, she did not eat. She lived in a room, freaking twisty, tied up, you know, in her own waste. And then you got this Wisconsin House of Horrors, where, again, same thing. They treated this little girl. Thank God she survived, though. Jacqueline didn't. But again, starving her, locked her in a room. I mean, you know, it's slow torture. And then you get a guy that goes on a mountain and really just didn't plan well, definitely needs to be held accountable. But will 12 juries believe that he intentionally tortured them? And again, that to me is something that they have to look at from what did he ignore that he could have known? What were the choices? You know, the other path that would have been a little bit more easier. But I think the pivotal moment is when he got to the summit. It notes that's when the weather got bad, and then he turns back. So they're really just pushing on this could have been prevented, but he does do the right thing in that moment, I guess. He shouldn't have been up there to begin with. But you also have on video all the warnings probably from the children saying, Dad, we're going to freeze. This is not good. So all of this could play out as you known better and you were torturing these kids just to get to the summit. Because I'm thinking, Russ, if you look at the video, my mind, we evolve the discussion as we go. If you look at the video, the torture could come from the kids and what they're saying on the way up.
Yeah. But I also think that you know, this is going to be really subjective for the jury. But I also think that, you know, they can state that at the beginning he thought everything was okay. So but the problem brought in here is because of the new law, though. And, you know, just looking at, you know, they're going to have, you know, potentially a lot of potential, you know, lesser included offenses that the jury may be more comfortable with. And yeah. I think that's where the defense is going to go, unless they go with some kind of, you know, diminished capacity kind of thing.
If I was the prosecution and I'm going to push for this torture charge, I would definitely, if I had to, but I don't know. You're right. You got to convince 12 people here. I would be more focused on that video and hearing the kids maybe ask for help, saying we're freezing, whatever, and count that as, hey, they're telling you how they feel. You're not listening. You know, you obviously in that moment, you know, one child is saying they're freezing. You know, why are you not stopping at this point? Every time you take a step forward, you're torturing those children. But then I could also say, again, I'd like to be objective here. You know, kids complain all the time. How did I know that? I didn't know they were really freezing. I checked on them. Looked like they were able to still move forward because we still made it to the summit. So, you know, if I was on the jury, I don't know. Is torture something that you can sell unanimously to 12 individuals? Is that what the concern is going to be?
No, well, I mean, it's going to be, because that's where the prosecution is going. But the roadmap that the judge is going to instruct them before they go into deliberations is going to have the lesser included offenses. When it has the lesser included offenses, it's going to be easier, in my opinion, for the jury to pick from those lesser included offenses than this new head scratcher at the top that's going to be, you know, oh, what's this, you know, child torture. So I think that's where it's going to go. I think the jury is going to be more comfortable going with the lesser included offenses, but that's just a guess on my part.
And guys, I think and I don't know if the defense is going to want this, but I think that month before matters, where he had the ideation to hurt himself, because that could switch the narrative to maybe that this was planned and they weren't supposed to come back. But then again, he did turn around and he did try to make an effort to bring him back, but then he disappeared. And we don't know what the hell he did during that time, because I don't know if he even called or was able to call for search and rescue. It looks like maybe the wife had called because they didn't return back, and then that's what pursued the the search and rescue. So I think there's a lot there still to figure out. But the question is, will this be something that will be supported the torture, or will they have to go for a lesser? Even though we know how we see it, we're not on the jury, and we only see a glimpse of everything. We don't have everything in front of us. We only have what's been translated to us from the media, which sometimes could be subjective and biased. Hey, Russ, anything you'd like to say in closing? And by the way, guys, if you like the content, we do have Buy Me a Cup of Coffee. It's in the description. There's mine and Russ's right below mine. And I also have mine on top of the YouTube channel. Hey, Russ, anything you'd like to say in closing?
I did want to say, thank you to my first cup of coffee from Marie. So that was a good thing. And, it just helps us keep going here. It keeps us invested and enthused. And so anyway, I hope that everyone learned something here. What happens in criminal law and criminal cases and stuff, it's murky even to us sometimes, but it's good to come in here and flesh things out.
I agree, Russ. And are you giving them video replies?
I have not done that yet, but I am going to.
I do it. I think it's hey guys, by the way, Russ's name is above mine on the description, so you can see Russ's first and mine. All right, guys. So I thought it was a good dialogue. We covered it. The case itself was more detailed in yesterday's show, but I wanted to revisit because I was looking at the comments and saw some other areas to discuss. If you have any other cases, feel free to. If you want to even put the Buy Me a Coffee, you could put a little blurb there of what case you feel you think would be good for us to cover. But I enjoy having these discussions with Russ. We do our research beforehand, and I'll see you guys on the other side. As always, guys, stay safe.